Irrigation, what the irrigation installed is going to involve is we've got a lot of infrastructure in the park out there, but you know, it's like a famous guy says, it's not easy being green. Well, we're trying to get to green, and over here on this site, what we're going to do is we're going to have external irrigation installed. It's literally going to be on top of the ground initially. They're going to install the irrigation. You're going to see it out there. They're going to get that going, and then they're going to come in and hydroseed. So they'll hydroseed the whole area, turn the irrigation on, and boom, you'll almost have instant grass out there. So we're trying to get this site greened up as quick as we can, because the sooner we get some of the vegetation in the grass and get our roots established, and you know, that gives us more of a grip on the situation, especially with high water. Also, there's going to be some trees that have gone in on the berm. We're going to do a boardwalk on this side, which if you look behind the bus station, you'll see some metal and wood. The boardwalk is going to go in approximately this side of the RMI property, and it's going to take you out to the river. It's going to be on the boardwalk to a point, and then you'll pick up a trail and be able to go back out there. It's kind of the old trail where you used to walk out between the reflecting pond and out to the river. But that'll be in a boardwalk situation. The culvert's going to be taken out, and you'll have a creek running under it. And then, like I said, the sod is probably going to be one of the last things to go in, because we want to get everybody in, do their work, pull everybody out, spray the grass, and get it going. So we're looking at we're shooting for the end of September to have that area greened up over there. So if we've hit some delays, the flood, we can sit here and talk about delays all night, but I can reassure you that going forward, we're pushing as hard as we can.
Boyd, is this going to be is this posted on the website this time?
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay. Yes.
Just to kind of fill in a few of the blanks, there's another park there called the Gisela Myers Park, where the skateboard park is located. That's a separate parcel from the piece that he's talking about, this Midland Park. Midland Park was 2 acres. It was acquired from Clay and Paul Adams, Clay Crossan and Paul Adams, during their annexation process over here on South Side, where they built the mini storage warehouses. And that 2 acres, at that point in time, fulfilled their agreement to provide parkland to the town. There was a plan done there in 2009 that's now being executed. So between 1999 and 2014, we're seeing.
Can you please speak up? We're having a hard time hearing what you're saying.
The other piece I'd like to mention is the Old Pond was sponsored and mostly by a $3 million bond that the town passed, negotiated with the Levinsons to get that parcel. We had granted the Taqueria a year's liquor license, and they ended up staying 14. So these 2 parks have been there for a long time. The biggest bang we got for our bucks, though, was acquiring the landing for the Midland Bridge, where next to the skateboard park. That was private property. It had 6 mobile homes on it, and we ended up negotiating for about 6 months. And once we told Alice and Lonnie Stott that we wanted to get the traffic away from the school, they agreed to sell us that property, and we were able to build the Midland Avenue Bridge. Otherwise, it would be where Bernie mentioned was the 7-Eleven Bridge, which would have dumped all that traffic right into the school. So there's a lot of good things about these parks that, now that they're being developed, I think we should all, thank those people that provided those opportunities to us. Lonnie and Alice Stott are probably one of the toughest negotiating teams we've ever been up against. So, word of warning if you try to go buy anything from them. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. Okay, our next guest star is Louis Meyer. And Louis, I think, is going to be talking about the underpass, correct?
Yes.
And I hope you have a musical rendition to follow.
Unfortunately, I don't.
Okay, all right.
Actually, there's 3 projects I'd like to update you on. The first would be the Basalt underpass. We would like to recommend to the town council to reject the bids, to allow us to go through a value engineering process, delete things that are potential deletes, modify things, and Secondly, to rebid during a time of year where we hope we would have more interest in the project. As you know, we had 2 bidders, and the bids were over $2 million above our engineer's estimate. So we think we'd like to reject the bids. We've had some discussions with CDOT. We have not formally notified them yet, but we'd like to make that recommendation to you.
Is that it?
And 2 other projects I'd like to update you on. There are several changes coming about that will impact the town's floodplain issues that we're working on. The first is that CDOT is in the process of doing a letter of map revision, which stems from the bridge they built upstream. When they built that bridge, they remapped the floodplain. They assumed about a 40% blockage of water underneath the bridge during the flood event. And that caused the floodplain, the water, to be diverted to the south side. And in reality, that has not happened and probably won't happen. So CDOT has hired a hydrologist. They're in the process of remapping the floodplain where there won't be a 40% blockage. It will be something less than that. And that will have the tendency to change the floodplain mapping on both the south side and the north side. The second change that is occurring is that the 2 main regulatory agencies on floodplain, the CWCB and FEMA. FEMA is the federal agency, CWCB is a state agency, are remapping floodplains statewide because primarily because the mapping tools they have available today are much better than they were 30 years ago. So by having better mapping but using the same hydrology, they're finding that the floodplain is changing. So between those 2 things, there will be some changes to the town of Basalt's floodplain mapping.
Anybody?
You need a motion to reject? Yeah, to reject and rebid Basalt Avenue underpass.
Okay. So Lewis is actually waiting for a motion to reject the bids.
So moved. Second.
Further discussion?
Question, status of any partner funding we have for the underpass?
We continue to work with them?
No chance that we're going to lose them by pushing this project off?
No.
Other discussion? Rick? You good? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I just wanted to ask that on this item and any other item that shows up on the agenda, it's really helpful if we have any packet information ahead of time, because it's just hard to digest when it's just given to us here, and it's certainly not you. We have this ongoing, so I'm just going to ask staff to make sure that we have packet information, even if it's minimal, just so we have a clue of what's coming at us. And also the public has access to these packets too, and I think it's nice for them to be able to know. And so,
Jake, I do have
Yeah.
a question. Given that you're value engineering and going back out to bid, given that they're going back out to bid and value engineering the project, it was designed, or bid the way it was to accommodate low water. So you're going to go to bid in the season when you'll have potentially lower numbers, but the construction activity is still scheduled for next fall, if it goes ahead?
Rick, we haven't gotten to the point of providing a completion date yet. But there's a number of things in play. Yes, we would potentially have high water issues, but the design and the bids had that taken into consideration. That would potentially be offset by not having to do cold weather concreting during the wintertime. There's some issues with RAFTA. We would have requested the work be done in the shoulder seasons, not during the 2 peak seasons, so we'd have to work through all of that, all of those issues.
going. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Louis?
One more project that Mike asked me to update you on is we have been in conversations with Pitkin County on the Whitewater Park. Just a very brief update on the Whitewater Park. James and I met with John Ely, and Pitkin County attorney, and his designer, Jason Perry. John and Jason presented the Pitkin County's plans for the Whitewater Park. The plans were specific to the Whitewater Park itself, the work in the river itself. James and I discussed all the town's permitting processes that would be necessary, the floodplain issues, and other issues. Started discussing things like access, parking, construction staging, all of those issues, and we will be bringing more information to you in the next few months on the Whitewater.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yay.
Is it going to happen?
Their desire is to be in the river as early as this late fall, early winter.
And are they still thinking up Valley
Pardon?
at the original place?
Yes, along Two Rivers Road.
Right, down, or up Valley, basically? Okay, all right. Okay, just so I don't move on again when you still have another one. Do you have another one?
That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Louis. Did anybody have any last questions of Louis or Boyd before we cut them loose?
Like, give the date for the Whitewater meeting, P&Z, or
P&Z next week, and then town council in September, both meetings.
you say both meetings?
Yeah, the 8th and the 23rd, whatever that's, your second meeting in September. Yeah.
I got.
Okay,
Is there any point at all in trying to talk about putting it closer to town? You know, the same case with the Midland Avenue Bridge is $600,000 that Pitkin County got to replace the 7-Eleven bridge. We were able to get reallocated to Eagle County and put the bridge where we wanted to put it. I don't know if that's a barrier in this case or not, but hopefully somebody's kind of bringing that up. And I've got a lot of kayak buddies that are bugging me about where it should go.
right.
We've actually talked to them about that, and it has to do with the water rights and the confluence.
I get all that. Why it's not called a water rights park. But, you know, that's my feedback on it.
Well, just to follow up on that, I guess if in fact, because we talk about this all the time, but we don't talk about it to the right people. So if in fact Rick could help or I could help, if you need to get some other people involved, because this has kind of been isolated as the John Ely show, and I think it's maybe, it needs to see the light of day a little bit. If that's possible, be great. Okay,
I got enough to do though, so.
I just offered you. Okay. All right. Thanks again, Louis. All right, our next item is citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. So these are actually comments for things that we're not going to talk about later, nothing to do with, okay, if you have one anyway, go ahead. Stand up
My
and,
name's Mary Jo Hughes, and I have a question about conflict of interest. I am wondering how town council members can be working on projects in the town and voting on them. Is that allowed here in the town or anywhere in government?
Mary Jo, let me just say this. This comments for items that are not on the agenda, we don't take up now as a discussion item because we don't have time. So if you are seriously interested in bringing this to town staff and trying to get something on the agenda as a real discussion where we have packet information and stuff, let's do that, but we can't really talk about it right now.
Okay, I'd kind of like to see Rick Stevens recused from voting, however, on the Pan and Fork or even on anything with low enterprises.
Okay,
Let me
enough on
comment
this.
on that as the town attorney. This issue has been previously raised. Rick does not have a conflict of interest in that.
Excuse me? Yeah, what?
Rick does not have a conflict of interest regarding the Pan and Fork property. There is no application before the town, and the town council members are authorized to deal with matters that are legislative in nature without regard to their personal interests. This is a matter of Colorado law, and I have researched the issue. If you want to take issue with my opinion, you're free to do that, and I'm happy to talk to you outside of this meeting.
Do you have
that in writing, sir. My name is Tina Stabers. I live in Southside. I don't know your ways because I haven't been here that long, but I'm very curious about all those rules.
Okay, guys,
That's
listen,
fine. As I
listen.
said, I'm happy to talk to you later.
Please raise your hand and be called on. And also, if you have questions about this specific item, I think Tom has kind of opened the door that you may contact him. If you need his number, you can call Town Hall, and he can chat with you about this. I think he's explained to us the situation, so I think we're good. Yeah, Bennett.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, Council, how are you this evening? My name is Bennett Bramson. First, I'd like to just bring to your attention that Outdoor Elevation Magazine is running its third annual Outdoor Adventure Towns Contest. We are currently competing against Vail. So go to their website and let's vote. Right now, we're ahead 58% to 42%. Let's get out there and vote for Basalt. And that segues, it's Colorado, it's at elevationoutdoors.com. So that kind of segues into my second comment, and that is that we are all involved in some very contentious issues. I posted this on the Basalt page 2 weeks ago. We all love Basalt. This is a place we all care about. Yet there are differences of opinion, and we understand that. But I do ask, as I did on the page 2 weeks ago, that you please address the issues with civility, with consideration for others. There's no need in this town for you to have to direct your comments personally at people, for you to have to be nasty. There doesn't have to be any vitriol. Again, we can all disagree, and yet we can agree on one thing: we love Basalt. So please don't direct your comments at somebody personally, whether it's Jim Lowe or whether it's Jim DeFranci or Low Enterprises or members of council. We all care about this place, and let's do this in a way that shows the civility and the kindness and the kind of town that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bennett. That was good. Good to hear. Yes.
Hi, my name is Lauren Wilder, and I've recently been appointed to your Public Arts Commission. And I just wanted to tell the council thank you. It's a really opportune time to be involved in the arts in Basalt. And it's very inspirational. One of the reasons I wanted to be on the council or the commission was because of this beautiful piece of property across the street. That being said, and to follow up Bennett's comment, was regarding that piece of property across the street. We all have passion about it, and it is very inspirational. So I ask that the community and the council not refer to it as a dog park. You can hear how that kind of brings the whole room down. And so we could just, remember that it's beautiful, and we all think it's beautiful. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for all your work.
Thanks, Lauren. Any other comments for items that are not on the agenda? Not on the agenda? Yes.
Can you just comment during the agenda? I'm specifically interested in resolution number 43. When would it be appropriate that I might say something?
We're gonna actually tell you when that's gonna happen. Okay.
And then we can actually ask questions at that point as well?
Yes.
Fantastic, thanks.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Got a small one. And coming up on the agenda is the Liquor Authority for the Willits upcoming beer festival. Maybe we get an update on where the Triangle Park is, and will that have any impact on that festival, or is it being held at a separate site in Willits?
In the Whole Foods parking lot.
Right, exactly.
In the
Whole Foods parking lot.
Thank you.
And we're actually gonna, I guess that was consent,
That was consent.
All right, thank you. Other comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, great. We are actually now going to convene as the Liquor Authority, if we could get a motion.
Mayor, I move we convene as Liquor Authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Pam Schilling, Town Clerk and Liquor Expert.
I'd like to invite Karen Morris up and Jennifer Brown at
We're a chair short here.
These are our Element Hotel representatives.
Can we make space right there for that other chair? Sure. The squeeze going on. and I'll let them introduce
Thanks, Kat.
themselves in just a moment. So this is a public hearing on an application for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license. This is the first hotel and restaurant liquor license to actually use the hotel part of the hotel and restaurant liquor license. And the difference about this particular location is that we will be licensing all four floors of the hotel, including the patio. This will allow them to have many bars and rooms if they choose to. They will be able to serve alcohol in their restaurant and with room service. And the final thing I wanted to say about that was that it was, this is all contingent upon a final CO and re-inspection by our investigating agencies. I won't go through the public hearing steps. What I did want to note for the record is the board is able to make findings regarding the restrictions on licenses. No prior licenses have been denied at this location or within 500 feet in the past 2 years. The applicant has submitted a lease in perpetuity, indicating that it has possession of the property in the event the license is granted for the initial 1-year term. There are no municipal zoning laws prohibiting the sale of alcohol at this location, and the building on the application is not located within 500 feet of any public or parochial school, principal campus of any college, university, or seminary. The application appears to be complete. All background checks have been completed, and there are no problems noted by the CBI or the FBI.
That's good.
I did. The building, I won't go through all the comments by the inspecting agencies other than to note the building department has no problems, concerns, or comments other than the license will be contingent upon receiving a certificate of occupancy. Having said all that, I would like to make a staff recommendation and then allow them to make a comment, and then you can.
Right.
Staff would recommend approval of the new liquor license contingent upon receiving a final certificate of occupancy and final inspections of all agencies involved.
Thank you, Pam. All right, thanks for coming here. You both look familiar.
Right. So we would just like you to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your vision and why you think this is great for the community and the valley, whatever. We'd just like to know why you want a liquor license.
Sure. My name is Karen Morris. I'm Director of Operations for Silver West Hotels. I will be the registered manager on this liquor license for this location. That means I am required to train and approve all staff that will be serving liquor. Our intent is, by brand requirements, we are to be able to have an evening reception for our guests 4 nights a week for an hour and a half. And then we follow that by a 1-hour time for them to purchase beverage to be consumed on site. It is limited to our guests. Then our second purpose is the ability to have lunches, dinners, receptions in our meeting room or in our courtyard area, bringing additional room nights to the community and an opportunity for our guests to use all the amenities of the community, whether that be additional restaurants, bars, activities, skiing, biking, all the things that Basalt is so wonderfully known for. But that is our request. Jen Brown, currently living in the community, is our Director of Sales and Marketing, and she is tasked with creating activity that brings folks into the element.
Great. It sounds like fun. At this point in time, we ask if you have any exhibits or petitions that you want to present to the town, or if you maybe already have done that. I don't know. It sometimes is done. Don't worry. it's no way a deal breaker. Sometimes people go around to the neighborhood and get petitions.
We have our 100 signatures.
Okay,
on
I
file.
didn't know if that was mandatory.
Part of the application for the.
Okay. Okay, great. So at this point, as part of the public process, we're going to ask people in the public if you have any comments in favor or in opposition to this application. In favor or in opposition to the application for the liquor license for the Elements Hotel at Willits? Hearing none? Cool. So we will turn it over to the Liquor Licensing Authority for questions or comments regarding this application.
I move that the liquor license is approved for a new hotel and restaurant license for the Element Hotel.
Second.
Further discussion? I just had one question. You underlined guests only in your happy hour time. Is there a time when the public has access to that amenity at all, or no?
Only if they're attending functions on the property.
And what would a function be?
Like, if you had a wedding reception.
Okay. Okay.
Or
Rehearsal
if we,
dinner.
rehearsal dinner, or a reception after a meeting.
Okay. I wasn't clear about that, and it was a while ago when this application went through, whether or not the public had access to the hotel amenities at all or not. So, good to know.
We know.
Right. So we have a motion and a second, and discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you for coming in. Good luck.
Mayor, I move the town council adjourn the local liquor authority and reconvene the council.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, thanks, guys. Okay. This is item 7, public hearing and second reading. Ordinance number 15, an ordinance of the town approving a contract for the purchase of Unit 324, Riverside Plaza, Lot B, C condominiums located at 355 Gold Rivers Court. Judy Tibbetts.
Thank you, Jackie. This is the 7th unit that we will own in that building. It is a 1-bedroom, and it's on the 2nd floor. And this is price will be $220. So, and right now I have probably about 10 applications from teachers, and this will show that next week as soon as we get possession of that.
This is also a public hearing. So we will open the public hearing at 6:45. Did everybody get what this is? We are purchasing a real estate property on Gold Rivers Court, which is across this way here, for basically community housing, and we are writing policy for how that housing will be allowed, which people will be able to use it, but we are getting a lot of demand from teachers, I have to say, and it's that time of year for sure. So is there anybody in the public who has a question or a comment about the purchase of this property? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Council? Yes, Rick?
What, can you, I missed, I think, the criteria. Did you guys have that discussion?
Actually, it was, the item was going to be the work session later this evening if we have time.
If we have time, so we don't really
Right
have that.
now, what we do is town employees first, and then what we do is essential personnel, meaning teachers, firefighters, and have a list of those, and then we open it up to 15 Eagle County employees, and if we get that, and we don't have any takers, we will, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, we're working on criteria as part of the work session item on the housing guidelines. It's when the amendments are adopted, we're likely to have to approve the guidelines for how the town-owned properties will be prioritized, at least to
That agenda item, though, has been, we've been asked to shorten that or push it ahead, and maybe we should defer the vote on this unless there's a closing issue, release till after we have the discussion on affordable housing. And focus during that discussion on this criteria, because I really would like to see us have that sort of contemplated before we spend any more money.
Well, we've been acquiring a few when the time is right, and this is that time. I can assure you we'll be addressing criteria in the immediate future. In fact, if you give staff direction on the work session item to proceed, you're going to see it sooner rather than later.
Okay, good.
And I kind of feel also like we should maybe push forward. We have some residences already, and I think some of us have expressed our concern about not having any policy about how that was going to be dealt with, and staff is on it. So
I'm suggesting that happen tonight.
We can get it started.
we can
It's not
try.
a work session item.
So do we have a motion on this one yet? I can't remember.
I move that the town council approve ordinance 15, series of 2015 on second reading, a contract on the purchase of Unit 324 Riverside Plaza.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okey-doke, thanks, Judy. Okay, resolutions. We have a request from Councilman Grauer for reconsideration of Resolution 43. Now, let me just preface this by saying, this is a procedural matter. It's possible that this will go up or down and that this will, the motion may pass or not pass. So we're not taking comment on this piece, on the procedural piece, but when and if it passes, we will be taking public comments. So at this point, we just need a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council reconsider resolution number 43, series of 215.
Second. Okay, further discussion on this part?
Well, I was going to give some background on why I am making this motion to reconsider, but I had asked the town manager, Mike, and possibly Tom to give some background before I give my explanation of what motivated me. I don't know if this is the right time for them to do that.
Well, I think it could be, but I think we were also talking
I was
about
going to take
putting it
comments.
on the actual.
I was going to talk about this on the next part.
This is just a motion to reconsider.
Okay.
Yep.
That's fine then.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay. So the next item is actually reconsideration of that very motion.
The resolution.
Exactly, of the resolution 43.
Mayor, is this the right time to make it?
Let me just quickly recite what it is.
Look at the whole thing. You're picking up the wrong, you're picking up just the old resolution 34. You want to pick up.
It says 43.
Sorry.
Let me start and see if it's the right one. Resolution of the town approving a pre-development agreement, right, with the Roaring Fork Community Development Corp. And Low Enterprises. Okay, so did staff want to introduce this?
Yes, I will. A lot of discussion about this pre-development agreement for the last 3 weeks. And I asked the mayor tonight if I could try to address, and there's probably, we call them 10 recurring questions. And I'll try to do it in 2 minutes and save time for the public to make comment. And the first question is, why do you do pre-development agreements and how many have you done since 2013? So the answer is, we have entered into, or we currently have 19 pre-development agreements that we're working on. Most of those being 10 have expired, which isn't uncommon when you're working on pre-development agreements. With this particular property, we've had, this will mark the fourth, three of which have gone to the town council. So the first pre-development agreement was with Richard Myers in Realty Capital. His project was a 120-room hotel, 20 residences, 15,000 square feet of restaurants and public spaces, and a not-for-profit campus. Total, somewhere around 170,000 square feet was his proposal. What we did is, the first thing that we do is we ask that we see the financials for the person proposing development to make sure that they can do it. As we walked through the Realty Capital piece in terms of that company's ability to do that project, we found out that they were not capable of doing it. That was then assigned to a company called Presidio out of California, who are hotel developers, who were interested in the hotel piece, but not necessarily the residential pieces or the restaurant pieces of that first proposal. In that first proposal, the pro forma was actually underwater. They hadn't accounted for paying for the parking garage. They thought the town would pay for it as part of the ongoing negotiation. Those two left, and then we had a pre-development agreement with Community Development Corporation, which isn't a developer, but the owner of the property. So that as they were exercising options, we wanted to have the ability to know who they were working with, because it was going to end up, and it will continue to be, a three-party agreement. The town owns land, the CDC owns land, and at some point the CDC wants to sell their land. As the map currently shows, about half that CDC parcel is shown as a public park or a city park, and half of it is shown as private development. So there is a developer that's involved in the negotiations, a landowner involved in the negotiations, and the town of Basalt. How that resolves itself, I don't know, but I know that there's currently 3 parties that are trying to figure it out. On this property, Lowe is the current developer of record in that they have the option to purchase the property. I think it was a surprise to people after the last meeting where Jim DeFrancia came out and said, hey, I'm still working on my application. I'm going to submit it to the town council. The thought was voting down the pre-development agreement was going to stop the developer. That was never going to happen. It's his option to propose whatever plan he wants, but ultimately he will have to negotiate with the town as you try to untangle that parcel if there's a public park piece and a private piece. The Roaring Fork CDC selected Lowe, just as they selected Richard Myers, just as they selected Presidio. So as the property owner, they can select whomever they want to work with. It's our hope that we have the ability to make sure that these are people that the town can also work with. At the April 14th meeting, I think it was Patrice that brought me internet article related to Lowe development and some of their projects in other areas and some of the concerns that she had about their ability to do the project. The very first thing we do in a pre-development agreement is we make sure that the people we're working with can actually do the project. And they have a proven track record. And we understand their financials and the things that they've done. And as I told her that night, we use the pre-development agreement to allow us to do that. Without it, we can ask and they can say no, but with the pre-development agreement, we actually have something in writing that says they're willing to use our financial advisor and they will provide to him as a third party their financials and he will look at them, and they don't necessarily have to be shared with us, but it is shared with our financial advisor. So that's how we get our assurance as to whether or not this person can do the project. In the very first one, that particular developer couldn't do it and he left the project. I don't know if Lowe can do it or not. My guess is they can, but you really need to give us time to make sure that they can, that they're the appropriate ones. That will be a due diligence that we've done 3 or 4 times. CCRC is another example of where we did the financial analysis of the people and their capabilities of doing the project, which was requested by the Planning Commission as they were reviewing the proposal, and it came back that, hey, there's some things that you need to be aware of, town, before you go any further into this particular land use, because this really isn't a land use discussion. It was really an insurance discussion and how you would fund the people that would live and that project in total. The last thing that I would tell you is, for us, the benefit is we get to use an independent financial advisor that only represents the town, does not represent developers, bankers, bond dealers, bond buyers, bond attorneys. They represent school districts, county, housing authorities, and cities and towns. So they represent you, the citizens, as well as the elected officials, in making sure the people that we're working with and the projects that we are working on are appropriate. And it's a real benefit because it can stop you from spending a lot of time on projects that will never make it to the end. So I think there's a lot of concern about how far this would go. I would say that our success rate on pre-development agreements so far is 2. Rocky Mountain Institute and the Roaring Fork Conservancy, and then we've had 8 that didn't make it.
Okay. Any other staff comments before we go to the public? Okay, so we're going to let the public comment first, and then the council will comment. I would ask that you keep your comments restricted to only regarding the pre-development agreement and not other things or people or anything like that. I would ask that you allow the person to talk who is called on, only that person. And so let's start. And just say your name for the record. Yes, sir.
My problem with the pre-development agreement is ordinance 34 set out, you guys gave instructions to the planning and zoning to zone that parcel 75,000 feet. You also, at that same, and I'll make a point of this, that was a surprise resolution that came out on Friday night. Nobody got to review it. We didn't get to review it.
And so that whizzed through, but it had concurrently, right before that, you had said, we are going to look at all the options. We're going to put them on the table. We're going to give you all the chances to look at the public benefiting options that we have not had the ability to since Lowe has come into the picture in November. Okay? So, that is in place right now. So, the passage, if you want to go ahead and pass this resolution, what you're saying to the Lowe Development Group is, you got 75,000 feet of development rights coming, and that's wrong.
Thank you. Next. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jen Merkel. I have a question to council and maybe the attorney. How often does a council member ask for a revote?
Whenever they want to.
How often has that happened?
You know, I can't tell you, but the deal is that the way it works, and I think we explained this at a previous meeting, is a person who voted for it is a person who has to ask for it. I've seen it on RAFTA. I've done it myself on occasion. It's just, if you want to, you can as an elected official.
It happened very recently on revisions to the marijuana regulations.
Just recently.
And with that, I urge you all to please not go into pre-development plan as well. I feel that their proposal, what they put forth so far, doesn't suit what my vision and many constituents in this room see as their vision for the future development of the RFCDC property. Thanks for keeping that in consideration.
Yes, sir.
My name is Doug McDonald. Appreciate the explanation given by Mike Scanlon. I think we appreciate the mechanics of what's going on here. And many of us object to 43 because it does create an improper perception on the part of the town. I had the opportunity to talk to approximately 24 people during the recent Sunday market. And I approached younger people. I approached people with kids and younger families. And I said, what do you know about what's going on? And they said, well, they're going to build a great big building. Either that or they didn't really know what was going on at all. And I took it upon myself to explain a little bit that there are choices, but it's clear their perception was that the council was headed down the road of going to build a great big building. And the opinions that I got back were that they didn't want that, and they wanted something more moderate on the site. Not necessarily grass, but something more moderate. And I thought I've been hearing inputs from the council that said, we'll look at those options. That's not the perception of the public right now, and 43 being revisited, unfortunately, just reinforces that misperception.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Roy Trevagen. I think part of all this contentiousness is that when this first developed, the information was sort of fragmented. It was all focused on buying the pan and fork, and then all of a sudden the second parcel came up, which involves this development. So we ought to, try to get more information out in the future. But 2 or 3 months ago, I met with Mike Scanlon, and I had a short conversation with him, and I asked him if the town bought the property for approximately $3 million, what it would cost in sales tax, and back of the envelope computation was like 3/8 to 1/2 cent sales tax for 10 years. And I think Mike has a very astute financial advisor, and I'm making a request to Mike, let's find out what it would cost for the town to buy this with a 10-year bond, and if it's 3/8 to 1/2 cent, get that out, as an alternative, so people have an alternative to the development. And I think most people, like myself, that want an open space there in that park are not opposed to reasonable, attractive development. There are plenty of spaces. Also, I was talking to one of the members of the Aspen Foundation. They're going to put a retirement community in Southside. There's 18 acres, and the financing fell through. They couldn't get the financing. You have 18 acres there, so that's a big alternative. We can make a majestic resort right there. So just think of the alternatives. And I asked Mike to get that out, what it would cost, and put that out there so people have an alternative decision to make. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Margot Pendleton. Again, I'm fairly confused, as usual. I spent last night walking around the property out there where all your homes are, and I thought it was quite huge. Well, the cone area was quite huge. And I appreciate Mike's explanation of the, what do you call this, the pre-development agreement. That shed some light on what I was thinking before. Because part of the pre-development case is to work with groups and come up with, they have 4 cases they might come up with. The base case, which is no development, low development, moderate development, and high development. That sounds really good, except for the one little thing that keeps popping up, that's 75,000 square feet that planning and zoning said was appropriate for that area. To me, that is a real stumbling block. If I hadn't heard the word 75,000 square feet, I probably would have supported this really well. But, you know, you get 4 alternatives, but planning and zoning says that 75,000 square feet is an appropriate development. Is it? Or are they going to come back and say it isn't maybe, or it is? And with Lowe's being attached onto this, it sounds like we're talking about Lowe's $75,000 square foot development. It would be interesting to go through this scenario and find out if Lowe's financial ability, there was some article in the paper saying that they have no problem taking their money and running if things go bad. That's it's not very good for me to hear, because you look at downtown Aspen with the right across from, what was the one up by Lift 1, the steel sat there for 3 years or more before they started building. That's like, you know, when the chips go down, you take your money and run and go on to the next project. Is that the kind of thing, Mike, that we would see come out in this scenario? Find out if they're the kind of people that do that?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm not sure where I want to go, but I really do not want to see anything as big as 75,000 square feet on that property.
Others? Okay, front, then back.
I request that a revote not be allowed.
Could you just say your name for the record?
Patrice Becker. I request that a revote not be allowed on Resolution 43, the Lowe's pre-development plan. I feel that this plan, with its housing part of it, will gentrify Basalt, and I feel that diversity is an important component. I've also read as far as a community development, so I would like you to consider that when you think about this proposal. And I also propose that you wait on zoning changes so we don't get into anything that we can't later get out of. So I think that we don't want to act hastily and get into something that we may regret. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Patty left. We spoke of this in April, and when the pre-development agreement was being proposed, and we realized that there were hundreds of us who would like to have that same opportunity to have a pre-development agreement. And as Mike pointed out, one of the criteria are that the pre-development agreement be granted to someone who actually has a track record to prove that they can actually purchase the land or whatever. And we as the town know for a fact that we actually can do that. And so I'm not sure of the terminology, so help me out. Okay, I don't know if I need to use the word demand, at this point in time are absolutely opposed that anyone would go ahead and allow the pre-development agreement to proceed with Lowe's in light of the fact that there are hundreds of us in the community who demand equal opportunity toward that sort of end, because there are so many of us who actually know for certain that there's a massive number of us who would like to see something other than what Lowe is proposing. And so help me out at this moment, please, to know what kind of terminology I need to use to demand equal rights either after the development agreement on this evening, or to say, no, they cannot have it because we can't have it and they can't. And we have a track record as a town that we are capable of doing this. And tell me what to do, okay?
Thanks, Patty. Next.
Oh, no, tell me what to do.
Actually, we're just taking public comment.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Kathleen.
Kathleen Cole. And I'd like Mike or Tom to answer this. Does the passing of this particular pre-development agreement in any way bind us to the size, location, or other further project specifications? As an example of that is the 75,000 square feet that everybody's so afraid of.
So I'll read you section 3 of that agreement. Nothing contained herein shall obligate the town to create or approve the development, obligate the town to create or approve an amended development plan for the project areas.
Does that, I'm trying to dispel some of these fears that people have, and so Margaret, does that help you at all?
Let's not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to see if that clarified vernacularly.
Okey doke.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Steve Chase, I live in Basalt, and I know a few of you guys up at the front could help me with this and help us perhaps. If I'm correct, and I may not be because dentists aren't always correct, but 75,000 square feet actually represents, theoretically, a two-story structure with a 37,500 foot footprint, which is about 3/4 of an acre. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Is that so? In essence, when we go up to our little picture up here, and everybody's scared to death about a huge building, 75,000 square feet doesn't even fill the part of the CDC property that has been designated by 3E or 3E2, whatever it was. That the footprint is really only 30. Am I right? Or help me with this, because I might be wrong. Mark, is that?
45,000.
Yeah, a full acre is 44,000 something. So a $75,000 huge, 75,000 square foot is actually a 37,500 square foot footprint, which is less than what has been designated to be built on by our own council. So 75,000 sounds huge, especially with the stock market being what it is, but I think if you actually come back and look at this plan, the footprint is smaller than what has been designated by our own town council. Is that true? Is that fair?
Okay. We're not going to vote on whether that's true or not true. Yeah, right here.
Royal Laybourne. Bernie, I want to just remind that in the comments that you got from the audience when you voted against that this resolution, I think you were responding to some political pressure, and I think what we're dealing with here is the mechanics of a process versus politics. And so former Councilman Rappaport came up, and I think another councilman came here and endorsed that idea that it needed to go probably to a public vote because we're getting past the mechanics of some of this resolutions and pre-development agreements and designations and changes in the master plan that will allow for 75,000 square feet of development. And so the horses are being pulled to the finish line because the process can take it away from the politics of what the community designates and sees as the value of the parcel. So I think that you did the right thing when you voted against it and said in your comments why you did that you felt it needed to go to a public vote. And I think that that's the position where we're going to end up. And so I don't see the value of it. Jim DeFranco came out and said that he would move forward working with the town regardless of that. And so we go back to the politics issue, which has been repeated by numerous people, that there's a perception, and you've created it, and this, moving forward with this resolution as a town council will put another big rubber stamp on it, that we're moving forward on this regardless of what you people think. And so we're here as a community to tell you, business people, citizens, young and old, that really, you've seen the river, you've seen the park, we want to buy it. We want to own it. That's it.
Jim Span. 75,000 square feet. Kenny said it's not very big. Here's a picture that Mark had printed up. And this is 75,000 square feet. The hotel down by Lewis. That's huge. It's crazy. When you cross the bridge now and you look up at 7-Eleven, you don't see the river. When you go through here, you see the river. It's really nice. Because over on the other side, you can't get near it. And so it's like you come down here, you go, so it's open, and you should stay open. And, you know, this was in the paper, which was referred to earlier, about Lowe. And they have a pretty bad track record. I mean, and nobody's refuted what was in the paper. And it's a research person from California who wrote about all their bad mistakes. And this other article about the Basalt Council determines to settle Pan in court. And, you know, like we were elected to make hard decisions. Well, they're all hard decisions, but they need to be correct. And we also about, we thought we'd go to public, but now we don't want to go within town, we can decide it. Public has to be involved and take care of this because you've seen what's happening. We have a nice place now, let's do the right, proper job.
Sir.
Well, that's good enough of the negative. I'd like to speak a little to the positive side of all this.
Name for the record, please.
My name is Norm Clayson. I'm a building engineer. I think we've all forgotten where we came from and where this all started. Somehow or another, it's just, we're now at the pre-application stage of this thing. This has been going on for a long, long time. Our town planning started this thing a couple of years ago. Every time I hear somebody say, oh, I never heard of that. Oh, I didn't even know we were going to build a building there. I asked you, where have you been? Our town planning has been going on forever. It's been a public entity. Everyone sat down. Then came the DAP. They approved it. Our town planning over in Blooming, they approved it. And the reason, what was the reason? The town of Basalt dies 7 months a year. And if you want a business here, you are dead in the water. We do really well in the summer. We do well over Christmas. The rest of the time, you could fire a gun across that road. You never hit anybody but a car, and you'd be lucky if you hit a car. There's no one here. That was the whole purpose of doing this, so that we could come up with a development, which we're at a stage now to move forward, that would provide bodies on a year-round basis, bodies to take care of visitors to the Rocky Mountain Institute. And I can tell you something about that. I used to work for them. I spent 4 years working for their communications director. And I can tell you that we have thousands of visitors every single year just to go see the banana farm. And when this building is completed, you're going to have heads of state, you're going to have foreign officials coming, you're going to have people from all over the world coming to visit this site. What do we want to do? Send them off to Carbondale, send them off to Aspen, provide a nice place for people to stay, provide bodies so that the town can survive more during the 7 months. We're right at a point right now where these gentlemen and ladies have to make a decision We either move forward or we just continue to die. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You know what, can we just do one thing? Did you get to talk already, or was that on the
Yeah,
last?
that was the
Okay,
second
let's let
That was his twin.
everybody who wants to talk the first time go.
My name is Lynn Mason. I just am curious, it seems like the talk is the town should buy the piece of property, and that presupposes that nothing will be developed on it, which doesn't seem logical to me. So something will be developed on it, probably, whether the town owns it or the CBC. Just a thought.
Thanks, Lynn.
Others who have not yet spoken? Yes, sir.
Yes, Lester Kraft. I live here, and I would just like to mention that my understanding is that this issue actually has come to a vote, that the bond issue election in 2013 included language that had to do with funding park and development. It was approved by the voters. I think due diligence now through a pre-development agreement to determine the potential next steps is sensible. Yeah.
Thank you. Others who have not yet spoken? Okay, I'm sorry.
My name is Debbie Locks, and I've been a 16-year resident of Basalt and a 30-year resident of Chicago. And I'm saying that only because, having lived in Chicago, and I don't know how many people have lived there or visited Chicago, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, a man named Daniel Burnham visualized the whole waterfront of Chicago to be accessible and immediately visible to every single resident that lived there, drove down the street, came into Chicago. That vision has continued. As of today, 2015, Chicago is buying 4 more miles to create 500 more acres of lakefront frontage. We have a little town, a little park, and it's gorgeous. As you have said, we have seen the water. Let's not lose it again. We've lost it on the other side. Let's keep it here. Thank you.
Okay, hand in the back, then hat hand, then green. Hand in the back. I can't see your face.
Hi.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'm Tina Sakers, and I have been in Basalt since 2007 from Washington, D.C. When I heard this woman talking about Chicago, I thought I should mention that I grew up in a town in New Hampshire called Portsmouth. The first history book written about it was called They Came to Fish. In 1960, in the middle of urban renewal, the librarian in town named Dorothy Bond spoke to the Rotary Club and said, "You're going to ruin us. You're going to ruin Portsmouth." She was a historian. She knew the stories of all the houses in town. The section that's next to the Piscataqua River was a poor neighborhood called Puddle Dock. Instead of tearing it down, flattening it, and building modern stuff, they in Portsmouth have created something called Strawberry Bank. In other words, they saved the history of Portsmouth and moved it to that little section of town. They restored homes to colonial period look. People dressed in costume and showed people around these homes. The land next to the river, which is very obvious, is gardens. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have come there since they finished it. There's also a stage for musical productions during the summer. So there are options for this property that are beautiful and open to everyone. And I think that's what I keep hearing everybody wants. So I thought I'd just mention another example. Thank you, and I have not spoken here before. I never planned to, but I couldn't help myself. So thanks.
Hi, I'm Skip Wellfeld, and I've lived here about 16 years. I also lived in Chicago for about 65 years, and it has a beautiful, beautiful lakefront that everybody enjoys and invites them to do all of the nice things. I also lived on the 15th floor of a building that's along that lakefront that goes about probably 10 miles along the lakefront, and nothing but buildings. So I mean, you can still enjoy a river, and you can still enjoy Lake Michigan, and you can still have some buildings.
Brian Dillard. I've lived here 13 years, raising 3 children in this small town, live in Old Town. And I just want to confirm, the vote was taken 5-2 is where we passed tonight. Yay? Is that correct? We've had the vote, it was passed 5-2?
No.
I apologize. Only to open. Only to open. So my question on this is merely that I asked 2 things. One, the directive to us was to speak to the resolution only. I think we've gotten a little bit broad with that. I know that everyone wants to have a place to speak, and maybe this isn't the right forum because you have something to do. But I also ask that tonight, you as leadership, those with name plates in front of you, set the course as leaders for the town. We are extremely divided. In my 13 years, I've never felt the angst in this room like we keep having it with this one movement. Take the horse by the reins and guide us. Thank you.
Yes.
Robin Mars, Basalt Chamber of Commerce. With respect to what Norm said and the comment here, I feel that what we also need is an avenue to provide accurate information. And an avenue to provide accurate information and people obviously also need to read that information. But there are comments that are said in public meetings that carry on that aren't correct. I'm still confused about what 75,000 means. I believe that tonight we are not voting on a project and we're not voting on 75,000 square feet. We're simply voting on an opportunity to gather information. If that's wrong, I'd like to know, and I also would like us to kind of figure out if there's a way to do a fact check in these meetings, and also if we can come together and try to recreate what the Our Town process started, where we're working together and we're bringing ideas together. So while, if this resolution passes, while the developer is getting information to share with the town and vice versa, if there's some way that we can get our community back together into a process of creative visioning, sharing information and talking together simply and productively. And the Chamber of Commerce is delighted to help in any way we can.
Yes.
My name is Joe Siri. I've been here about 13 years also. And everything I've heard so far in this room is exactly why we need to enter into a pre-development agreement. We cannot make an informative or intelligent, or have an informative and intelligent discussion unless we see the cards on the table. We're all arguing to this, to this, to that, to this. That's exactly why we need the pre-development agreement. So the cards are on the table, and we can make that, have that discussion then.
Laura Clayson, I've lived here 30 years in Basalt. Giving away my age, I'm sorry. And I agree with what was just said. I would say that the only way to move past the contention is to do something. And doing something is getting a movement here where we can get all the cards on the table and make an educated decision. Thank you.
Tracy Bennett. I've lived in Basalt 27 years and had a business for 22 years. And I'm so sorry that this is even called a pre-development agreement, because it sounds like you're entering into a pre-development a development. This opens dialogue. It opens dialogue. It opens avenues for discussion. Your town council could very well go, oh, hell no. Or they could go, great. But we aren't going to know anything. Please, we don't know anything until we can open the door that allows us to talk.
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, sir.
Hi, RJ Gallagher. First of all, what a room. I mean, this is great. Very odd, Jim. I see a lot of people in here who've done this before. Some of us. It's great to see this energy and activity on this whole issue. I wrote a letter, a column about a week ago about leadership, call to action leadership, and I stand by that. I think it's very critical to help take us down the path correctly. I also do believe that there is smart, sustainable development. And believe it or not, developers don't want to come in and screw up the land they have. That doesn't work for anybody. So when we talk about the importance of the river, which is critical here, it's got to really work for everybody to make that thing work, including the money behind it. And then the last thing I'd like to throw out is it's all about the money. So no matter anything else we talk about, if it costs more than a penny, it's an issue. Someone's got to find a penny, and everyone has to realize that. There's going to be concessions to give back and take there. But I too would like to echo a couple of comments. Let's stay on the high road. I've been on both the high and low road. It's a lot more fun on the high road. You can get served beers at every place in town. You don't have everybody mad at you. So I'm trying to walk a fine line. And I've represented a lot of developers in these kind of processes. And I work with low. Everybody's got some blemishes. I think that they could probably perform. They wouldn't be here. They have better things to do too. Where there's other alternatives out there, it'd be nice to know. But if we can shed light, bring numbers to the forefront, to allow people to have the opportunity to take a look at it, I think that's better for everyone. It just doesn't feel right now. Something just doesn't feel right. And I think the fear of the unknown is driving a lot of concern by a lot of people in this room. And it's neat to see them all come out and express that. But I think that unknown can be taken care of through great communication programs and open dialogue. I don't think the R-Town process has been great. Just saying that, but there's better ways to do that in my humble opinion. There's better ways to rework it, but I'm not sure they talked a lot about numbers in that process. So that's all I got, and I commend all of you for doing what you do on a volunteer basis, and thanks for helping us get through this now.
Others?
Call the question.
I have to make sure there's nobody else, because otherwise I get in trouble. See? Somebody else.
Larry, y'all, I've listened to way too many of these. This is a DMZ. That means no conflict, right? The feeling I have is there's not so much differences in issues, there are perception. And perception has many, many layers, and I think Mike described one of them, just this being a due diligence process. Beyond that, there are a vast number of tools, perceptual tools, graphic tools, scale tools, that can really give you and identify the differences in scale, perception, architecture, the relationships between whatever development there is, and this wonderful idea of a park. Nobody disagrees with that. But there are many parks, including Central Park, Chicago Park, and one Salida Park I visited, which were supported by, surrounded by some development. And they were. They brought people. They brought people to the park. And a park is really like a living, like a house. It's a series of rooms, active, passive, landscape. And when the final decisions are made, we as a community are really going to want to know what the costs to us and the benefits to us are for the full development. You know, the dream come true. So I think this should go forward as a beginning point. It's not the end, it's just a beginning point, and it has traction.
Okay, if everybody is finished, then you probably want to hear what the council has to say so we can move on. But I'm going to give you one more shot. Going. Mark, let's not. Let's move on since you've already spoken. That's okay. Okay, guys. It is now council discussion, so. Yes, Bernie.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you came out. It's a real tribute to the interest of the citizens in their town and its future. And I can assure you the Iran deal doesn't keep me up at night, but what our town is going to be in the future does keep me up pacing at 4 a.m. thinking what is the best course for the town to take that'll provide the most vitality, that will provide the most opportunity for lively engagement of its people and our precious environment. I would say that I need to explain to you why I voted nay, not supporting the pre-development agreement, and then I'll get to the point of why I'm really reconsidering that vote. When we were considering that issue of the pre-development agreement, we had another room full of citizens, interested citizens, and a good acquaintance of mine who I respect heard all the back and forth, the yays, the pros and the cons, the park people and the development people, and he came up, his name is Glenn Rappaport, a former city councilman, and said, let's just cut through all of this and do, a vote somehow, whether it's the vote coming from council or the citizens, because the town is too divided, and if we keep this process up, it's just going to divide us more, and so let's just get it out and get it over. And because I would say, without counting every person, it's quite evenly divided between those who would wish to see only a park on that parcel and those who would wish to see some level of significant development. So I think we do have a lot of good information available. I think the bad information comes in opinion pieces, letters to the editor, email, but that's our right as Americans. We get to express it the way we want to, whether it's accurate or whether it's non-biased or whatever. I will say the press has done a very accurate job, in my opinion, of describing what is going on in these meetings. Our town development process was very open and transparent, and it led to the appointment of these 12 members of vastly different opinions. Some wanted park, some wanted heavy development, called the Downtown Advisory Committee. And they met for 6 weeks, and they hammered out a compromise. And that compromise, we on the council took very seriously, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission refined that a little bit in resolution number 34, which the council adopted. They did use the term 75,000 square feet, but I take that as a maximum, because how did that term come about, 75,000 square feet? It was an arbitrary choice of the town manager and the planning director. It was just somewhere to start, and where it started was the developer, Lowe, wanted 150,000 square feet on that top two parcels, the brown and the green, and they just cut it in half. So they figured that's the maximum that a developer might want. What the Planning Commission recommended to us, number one, they are only recommenders. The council are the elected officials, and we make the final decision. But I wouldn't even say, reading that document closely, that they actually pinpointed 75,000. They said, this is a reasonable place to start. There was an amendment to that Resolution 34. That amendment stated that our financial advisor would look at 4 or 5 different scenarios, starting at park, period, nothing else. Park, low development, mid development, and similar to 75 and high, and analyze what are the financial ramifications of those decisions to the city. And I think the majority of us at the last council work session agreed that we must proceed with an informed, factual, and accurate financial roadmap every time we make a decision. And we need to engage our trusted advisor, Ehlers and Company, who's taken us this far through the bond vote, through the Element Hotel, and other projects. But let's talk about that particular evening. What happened that particular evening was not only but I remember, this is correct, the statement from the press, 4 members of the council said Tuesday night that the Pan and Fork controversy was likely to have to go to voters to resolve. They said the community is divided over how much development and what type is appropriate. Just so it wasn't me, it wasn't Glenn much, it was 3 other members of our town council who were seriously considering a vote sponsored by the council. Well, as the process wore on, it kept going on, and number one, Mike let it be known through the press that, hey, you can't just have a vote with no facts, no figures, no accurate information. You've got to get there. So you've got to value the property, you've got to value the development, you've got to value the value of the park, you've got to value the cost of buying the land, of giving up. We've got $3.7 million invested in that land that the owner of the land is supposed to reimburse us for, which we might have to give up some or most of that if we just buy the park. So the point he made was we can't get to that point of having factual, actual knowledge probably until April, because it is so complicated. It is very unlikely it could be put on the ballot. And whoever puts it on the ballot will have to have this kind of information, whether it is the voters making the initiative or the council, or your referendum or initiative will not be taken seriously by the members of this community. You are quite intelligent. So this is kind of the beginning of the process to get us where we have the actual economic and financial facts to make an enlightened decision. My background was in the financial industry, so that's why I find this of such importance. The other thing is, so we probably can't have any kind of election until around April, when all the facts are known and can be shared publicly with the people who are both pro-development and pro-park. And that will help inform the public as to their decision, too, when it comes right to it. Now, let's go back before this. I guess it was Resolution 19, and this is the direction that the majority of the council, in a 5-2 vote, which is called a supermajority, the direction we went in was that Resolution 19 map. And if you look at it, you will see the brown part is what the developer would be able to develop. We already bought with the bond proceeds the lower green part by the river. But as Rob said so well, I think we hit a sweet spot when we agreed to more or less divide that parcel in half that the CDC owns and leave that new green park for the city to determine its uses. And the developer would just be restricted. Well, that means the town is going to own 75% of that total land, and the CDC, and will be available for development, is 25% of that.
Approximately how much longer?
Well, there's been an awful lot in the press, but I want to take my time to educate people. And
if I could just ask, with full respect, I've asked everybody in the public to stay as narrow as they can on the pre-development agreement and the issues concerned with that. And I think that the information you're giving is really relevant, but I think we...
So you're saying cut to the chase, Mayor? Okay, I think I get that. I have never changed my mind on that vote, and the 5 of us have not, and that directed the city staff and the advisory groups to go in the direction of that map. Significant development, and we are not locked into 75,000 square feet. That is one possibility that will be analyzed. We could go down to pure park. All of that will be analyzed. Okay, so the 5 of us, I was not changing my mind when I voted nay, and the idea, the motion to enter into a pre-development agreement failed. The reason I voted that was with so many people saying it's going to a vote, I just thought there is no point in entering into a pre-development agreement, paying money, spending time on something that's going to be voted on in the next 2 months. Well, it hasn't worked out that way. And in fact, at our last work session, I didn't hear any council member saying it would be a good idea to have a council-sponsored vote at this time. I think at least the 5 of us were totally on board with doing all the financial analysis necessary having an open and public land use process, hitting every stop along the way without unnecessary delays, and hopefully, when we get there at the end of the day, not just people in this room who seem to have made up their minds one way or another, but the undecideds, which I've talked to, they are waiting to see what the final product is until they decide how they're going to vote or what they would do. So that's, and if you want to know in detail, the other big thing is our town planning website, and my memo to Mike Scanlon dated August 18th, explaining everything, why I changed my mind, and the background is in this on the our town planning. So I'll wait for other comments.
Okay, who wants to follow that? Gary.
Thank you, Bernie. I mean, basically, what I have seen from the beginning is I felt in May we were on a track, and we had a public process started that would determine a lot of the answers we would need to do a pre-development agreement. And I really think the confusion that is reigning out there in the public is based on the fact that we haven't finished that process. And yes, I don't love the term, Tracy, you have it perfectly. The pre-development just gets people going in a very poor way because, you know, on other things, I'm all in favor of pre-development agreements, but on this one, I think the community is too confused to really understand it. And if we just finished the master planning process, you can get to this step. Because I felt we were getting there, and we were close to coming up with a solution that actually most of the citizens in Basalt would be able to handle some level of development and a really nice park. And then all of a sudden, Resolution 34 came, and now this pre-development agreement, and it is just, it divided the community, I think, for no reason. I think we went a little too premature on this resolution and pre-development agreement, and we just didn't let the process finish. And so I'm not going to lose sleep because I have a feeling this is going to pass tonight. I'm still not going to vote for it because I really don't believe we're there yet. I think we need to finish the public process, but I think it's going to go. I'm not going to lose sleep because it's not going to tie our hands, and I just think we have to do a much better job as staff and as a council and as a community to get the factual information out to people so they can make decisions and they're not confused, and we don't have these meetings where one side's clapping, the other side's clapping, and it's like, I don't like it either on both ways, because on this piece, I thought we were getting there, and it was actually going to be a potential where we could come up with a compromise that the community could solve. And as Bernie said, I was thinking Glenn could be right about a vote, but the vote comes when the application comes. And that's when I see it, and, we'll see it. And that's when I think, if we can't finish this process and we can't come up with a solution, we will see a vote one way or the other. So, I really believe that we're a little premature on this pre-development agreement, and I really urge us not to go this way because it just keeps the confusion going, and it's really not necessary because I think the town can come up with a lot of financial considerations on its own.
Anybody else? Herschel?
I have to agree with Gary that there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of confusion out there. And the point of this resolution is to bring facts to the table to dispel that confusion. I think there are some people out there who are purposely talking about things to scare people, that this is locking us into a path. That's not at all what this is about. This is to give us the information to make the appropriate decisions, and that's what we were elected for. Let me say one more thing. I have not just confidence in Bruce and Ehlers to give us great information on this to help us make decisions, but I'm looking around this council, and there are people on this council that have been in office here and in other jurisdictions, and as I've seen Margot do, and I've seen Gary do, and I've seen our mayor do, and I've seen Rick do, they're not afraid to say no. If a developer, whichever one comes in with a proposal that does not meet our criteria, this council isn't being steamrolled. This council isn't being dragged down some path. This guy has said no, I know, many times. I know the mayor has been tough on many votes, and that's what I built my reputation on at the county and at the town of Valley. So this fear that if we get more information, it's going to lock us into something is not based on anything. This will help us decide which way to go, and will give you the information so that these people who come to you with rumors about giant buildings, you can say, no, that's not what we're looking at. That's not even what's being analyzed, because you'll know also. So I'm voting yes tonight.
Good one, Herschel. Anybody else? Yes, you have something?
I'm just, you know, I woke up this morning and I felt like Groundhog Day. I really did. It's like over and over and over of the same song when I wake up. It's like, we need to get beyond this point. And from the beginning, I've said a 30,000 square foot fishing lodge. That was my vision from day one. And I think that's still a good, viable decision. There are so many acronyms in the world: RFPs, PDUs, PDAs, MOUs, MOAs. They're just tools to help people get through the process legally. Because this is we've got more lawyers in this valley than probably anything else, and it's important that the town cover itself, and CDC is going to share in this cost, which is going to be probably $15,000 or more, just to figure out no development, a lot of development. And I've never been a lot of development, and I've never been just a part, but a certain amount I think is justifiable, and that's why I'm going to vote yes.
Do you have something? Yes, sir.
I will. I see Resolution 43 as being fairly innocuous. You know, I think it keeps us moving forward, and I want us to move forward and get to some type of resolution. What that is, we don't know yet. Okay, we don't know yet. 75,000 square feet is an arbitrary number based on half the original proposal from Lowe. It sounds big to me, but I want to see how the numbers shake out. I want to see what 75,000, what 50,000 square feet looks like on that site. Is it on 2 stories with a 37,500 footprint, or is it in 3 stories with a 25,000 square foot footprint? We don't know. I want to go down the road so we can answer those questions. I said I think 75,000 sounds big, but I want to see what it looks like. Lester, in all due respect, what you see is angst in this room. To me, it's passion. And it's the passion in the room and in this town that's going to make this park great. And that's what we need to revitalize downtown Basalt.
Thanks, Rob. Rick? Nothing? Well, I'm pretty much where I was before, which is I agree with Gary that I think this didn't ever need to happen like this. The developer himself doesn't really give a damn if there's a pre-development agreement. The only people that seem to give a darn is staff, honestly. And I understand why, because honestly, this is the tool that we have used ever since Mike Scanlon got here, and it paves the way for certain discussions while binding no one. I'm still not going to vote for it because I think it's too soon, but I'm like Rob. I don't see this as getting farther apart. I see this as getting closer together all the time. Nomenclature has really not helped us at all in this room, but myself, I hear the words and I hear us being much closer together. So that's just me, and is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, if I may. Well, I'll let Rob. Oh, okay, Mayor, I make the motion that Town Council approve resolution number 43, series of 215, a resolution approving a pre-development agreement with the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation and Low Enterprises.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
You can't vote out there. Actually, we're not taking public comment right now. Public comment is over for this subject. But next time,
Can I take a 3-minute break to go to the bathroom?
3-minute break. We'll catch you in the hall. Is 8C, Resolution 46, a resolution of the town supporting moving forward to establish Recycle in Basalt in 2016. Susan Phillips.
So what we have is
What are you talking about?
is Resolution 46. That's in the end what we're looking for the council to approve today. What we're going to do is give a status of where we are on bringing recycle to the town of Basalt. The recycle team was here in May and were very favorably received, so we're going to give a status report. And then we'd like the council to consider a motion approving this resolution. The most important item is number 1 of the.
You guys, everybody, we've got a staff person talking here. Please take it outside. Same here on the council table.
Support using recycle as Basalt's first public transportation system as it's aligned with Basalt goals. And that's probably the most important thing the resolution does, but it also, the second most important thing is it's authorizing the expenditure of $17,500 really for scoping money to be used in 2015 so that we can plan for opening recycle by Earth Day of 2016. So Mayor, why don't you give
Just a quick question. Where's the 17.5 coming from? General fund? Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to start with Merita giving just a brief presentation of the.
Does everybody know Mirta?
Hi, Mirta.
So she was a baby. Okay, we have a go on that one.
Good evening. Thanks for adding a moving item about pedaling to a long night meeting that you've already had tonight. So I just wanted to give a brief introduction. I know most of you are very familiar with bike share, but just wanted to give you a very quick overview of what a bike transit system looks like. So a bike transit system consists of movable kiosks that have docking points, which you can see here, where you park a bicycle. They are fully solar powered and have a kiosk where one can sign up at the station. And then there is a map panel for directions. And the bikes actually just lock into these docking points, and with a pass you can release the bike very easily and return the bike to any other station. A bike share system is a transportation system first and foremost, and connects very seamlessly with the goal would be with public transportation in all forms. Bike share is designed for short, under 30-minute trips, so we're not a bike rental system, but again, for short, point-to-point transportation. It's a great first last mile connection to the transit corridor. So in our valley, we're really privileged to have this amazing RAPTA system as our corridor, and the bikes can be kind of the spokes to that to be able to service getting to and from RAPTA in a more expedited form. It's great for one-way trips, which adds independence, flexibility, and convenience to your day. And most importantly, bike share is very reliable, and then you anticipate that a bike will be there when you need one. So in order to know that they're reliable, you can look in live time on an app and see how many bikes are at certain locations and how many parking places that are at other locations. We're working with our manufacturer to develop a way where you can see when the buses are coming adjacent to this same bike station, so that you'd really be able to have a full service transit app that you'd be using for one-stop shopping, which is really exciting. You can sign up in a couple ways, either on your phone or on the website, and receive a pass, which you see there in the hand, a little recycle pass. Or you can sign up at a station in which you receive a code to check out a bicycle. So those are 2 different methods. We are encouraging everyone to sign up online and have a pass just because it's a little bit more convenient and it's faster as well. So you just insert your pass into the slot to the left of a bike, put your things in the basket, and off you go. Bike shares are a fun, flexible, great way of getting around town. But in order for it to be flexible and reliable, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So we are moving the bicycles as an operations team at all times to be able to keep bikes where you need them at the certain times, and to be able to remove bikes from certain locations when we anticipate more bikes coming to certain places. So we do that on a balancing bike. We do it with a little vehicle as well. And a huge part of bike share is the educational component. So communicating how bike share works, communicating ways, and trying to engage individuals to perhaps change their behavior and use bikes as part of one's daily commute. So what would that look like here in Basalt? Well, we're anticipating at the beginning of the scoping process 5 stations. I have highlighted phase 1 here, one on Midland Avenue, one near the RMI building, one near the library and post office, one near the park and ride, and one in the Elk Run Arbany Park area. That might be broken into several depending on what our technology can provide in order to diversify and spread the breadth out a little bit more in that neighborhood. So how might these stations be used? For example, RMI employees could use them to go from the bus to the park and ride to RMI. Our users have said that 85% use WeCycle in conjunction with RAFTA, so that would be a goal that we would have here at Basalt as well. And our users are very much public transit-oriented riders. Perhaps you live in the Elk Run area and you want to ride a bike to town, or to the park and ride, to hop on the bus to go into Aspen, but you're going to be getting home with a friend, with a spouse, and you don't want to have to remember to go to the park and ride to pick up your bike. That's the flexibility of one-way trips. Our users, 67% of them use them for one-way trips, and 32% use WeCycle on a weekly basis as part of their commute. Perhaps you work on Midland Avenue and you need to run to the post office, and you don't want to use your car, and you don't want to find a parking place because you know all of that will take time. It would be much faster just to hop on a bike, zip over to the post office. As we're seeing with our riders in Aspen, 90% use it for shopping, and 46% are using them to avoid parking, so it would be much faster just to hop on a bike to do that errand. Or perhaps for morning again, you live in the Elk Run area and you want to stop at Cafe Bernard's for a cup of coffee before you hop on the bus to go into town. But if you were walking, you wouldn't have time to do that. So you were able to hop on a bike, go to Midland Avenue, grab your cup of coffee, and still make it to the bus on time. And so that what we're finding is that our riders are going into the downtown core to support business that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Do you have cup holders?
67%, we're working on that. That should be part of it. 67% of those who took trips into town wouldn't have if their had been WeCycle due to congestion and traffic challenges. And the WeCycle really encourages those spontaneous trips. So that's a quick vision as to what it might look like in Basalt. How would WeCycle work in Willits, perhaps? We're envisioning 4 stations, even though this looks like 5. We have one up in the Elgeville Road area, one near the Park and Ride, one in Town Center, Willits, and then on the right you see the Town Center one repeated as well as one in the residential area of Willits. So perhaps you say, well, WeCycle, everyone has their own bike, why would we need WeCycle? 91% of our users already have their own personal bikes, but what's great about WeCycles are their flexibility, the independence, the reliability. We're taking care of the maintenance for you. And so perhaps you use the bike to commute to and from your home in Willits to Town Center to hop on a bus to go up to Aspen, but you don't want to leave your fancy mountain bike parked there at the bus stop all day. It's a great use of WeCycle. Perhaps you want to get a little bit of exercise in your day. Rather than driving to the park and ride and sitting on the bus, you get a little bit of a ride to and from the Elgeville Road station to the park and ride, and that's also reducing congestion challenges on the park and ride itself. We do find our riders are using WeCycle for a short little bit of exercise. Perhaps you need to get to Town Center on your way to town. You're heading into Aspen and you want to quickly stop at Willits or at Whole Foods to get something to eat before you hop on the bus. You could ride from Elgeville Road to the Willits Town Center, and we're seeing that 36% of our rides are replacing car trips, which is a measurable amount and an impactful one when we think of the congestion that we see around commuting and rush hours throughout the valley. So our riders are using WeCycle to avoid traffic. So this is just a quick snapshot as to what it might look like to see a system alive a year from now. WeCycle is envisioning a valley-wide system in which you have one pass that would be able to access bikes in any jurisdiction, as well as eventually, hopefully, working with RAFTA as well, so that you have that seamless, that synergy between our transit systems. There are regional systems that have been very successful. The CABI system in the Washington, D.C. area, Bay Area Bike Share is a great regional system based on their BART line, and Hubway as well in Massachusetts is a great regional system. So what we're doing is not unique per se, but it would be the first in a rural area and a great model to start to see how it works, and one that has been proven very successful in our valley with the regional transportation system. And our riders have said that they would use it as well. 78% of our riders would be inclined to use WeCycle in other towns in the Roaring Fork Valley, and 85% would be more inclined to ride RAFTA if one had access to WeCycle at either end. So that's really encouraging for us. If our goal is to reduce the congestion on Highway 82, knowing it's only going to become more so, how can we facilitate the mass transit use by giving individuals flexibility on either end? And our riders said that they would ride in Basalt and would ride in Willits as well. So in order to make this happen, we would look to opening a system in April of 2016. It would be a great Earth Day celebration, and we know that it is quite a journey for us to get there. So we're looking to your help to be able to make this happen. Just to give you a little bit of anticipation of what a system would look like. A system of the scope that we've just talked about would be approximately $380,000 for a sustainable transportation solution. And we're looking at around $160,000 in annual operating costs. Here in Basalt, we would be pioneering year-round bike transit. In Aspen, we are only 6 months of the year, but we would be anticipating going year-round here. It could be really exciting and be able to create that reliability of changing one's commute, not just for part of the year, but for year-round. In order to make this happen, we believe strongly in public-private partnerships. Public transportation is an integral part of our infrastructure in a community, but we also know that the private sector should be an important player. So in Aspen, we created founding partners. And as you see here, leaders in the community who believe in sustainable transportation, that are important hubs, are important economic drivers, as well as important events locations in certain cases. And so these entities came together to help us purchase the capital infrastructure of our program. And we'd be looking for a similar model here in the Basalt WeCycle system as well. And so what we're looking for your support tonight would be to help us begin this scoping process, reach out to partners to help reduce the financial burden on Basalt itself, and to be able to engage a broad sector of partners in bringing this system to Basalt. So we would hope that you, as the town of Basalt, would be a founding partner, that we could engage Picken County, whom we've begun conversations with, Eagle County, RAFT is enthusiastic, recognizing the important transit connection of WeCycle, and Rocky Mountain Institute sees a critical importance in being part of this transportation system as it aligns with all of their goals and participating as a founding partner as well. And we know that many of you have ideas of who these founding partners could be, and this is just the beginning of the discussions. And so this fall, we'll be engaged in us as the WeCycle team, having those conversations, seeking the partnerships, so that we could come back to you to hopefully engage in this process and move WeCycle forward here in Basalt. So the next steps would be to first scope and optimize locations. What is the scale of our stations, the sizes, where do they go? To secure our founding partners, grants and private donations as necessary to be able to make sure this program is financially sustainable. To seek annual sponsorships and partners so that we have buy-in from the community, but also participation in ridership. And also to begin to plan an education, outreach, translation component of our program, so we engage the diverse community of Basalt, and so that when we launch in April, the process begins months and months before, so that we're ready to go and roll as soon as the snow melts from the ground. And so in order to do that, we hope that you will pass this resolution to support us moving forward and coming back to you. In order to make this happen, we have to purchase the system or order it by end of December of this year. So that is about our timeline in terms of needing to secure these funds, commitments, so that we open on Great Earth Day celebration.
So, Myrta,
Thank
you are one of the most exciting people I've ever been around. And your speech is so clear and fast, oh my God. Well, I'm going to go.
I wanted to keep it short.
It was really, but you were very, very clear. I'm going to go first because I've worked with Myrta over the years with RAFTA mostly, and most recently just little preliminary chats. But one of the things, and mostly because I sit on RAFTA, that I hear every meeting ever since the BRT opened, is that we need to spend millions and millions of dollars either on parking structures or circulator systems. Parking structures or circulator systems. Do you think that costs $380,000? And not to say that this would eliminate the need for more places to park or circulator systems, but I can see a lot of people who now are driving or not going on the bus at all could use this. And so I also see the fact that Basalt has more BRT stations than any place else in the world, or at least the Roaring Fork Valley. You know, we've got more than our share. We've got 3 stations, and some of these unincorporated areas that really would be left behind are lucky that, you know, they were very close to a BRT station that RAFTA put in. And I also see this as being an additional attraction to get people from Aspen or Glenwood to Basalt to fool around on these bikes, you know, to play on the, I mean, what a huge advantage not to have to have a car, you know? So many people don't want to bring cars anymore. So needless to say, I mean, I heard before this section of the meeting started that we do have money in the general fund, and I think we need to be more careful because it seems like we're constantly writing checks for something or another. But this to me is so huge and so makes RAFTA a bigger, better thing than what it is already. Okay, Herschel.
A great plan, very nicely presented. How seasonal has it been, and do you expect it to be? Do you scale back employees and moving bikes around? How do you deal with winter?
Great question. So Aspen currently closes on November 1st, so we've never dealt with the winter season. However, there are cities such as Chicago and New York who are on the same platform as us that do operate through the winter, so we know that the infrastructure can tolerate the winter months. We would most definitely scale back our staffing accordingly. We already do scale back our staffing in Aspen in the month of May as well as in September and October. Not only due to daylight hours, people are riding less and less later at night, but also the number of people that are in town as well. So one of our goals is to be adaptable, to be elastic, and to not hire through partnerships, not tie ourselves down to large overhead costs, but to be able to partner as much as possible to deal with that elasticity in a system.
Yes, sir.
So what do you think the annual cost will be in the Basalt area? What do you think the range will be?
I'm anticipating $160,000 a year. And
No, the annual pass.
Oh, the cost of a pass.
I was like, it's 160 for me?
Yeah, that's an expensive transit system.
I was like, wow, I could buy a really good bike and leave it unlocked.
Less, but for you, it's 160.
So we are actually going to be modeling that, depending on if we move forward with the Basalt system as well. We would want the same pass to be usable in Aspen as well as in Basalt. So currently a season pass is $50, and so we would like to keep it at that exact same threshold, so that you could purchase your $50 pass here and use it in Basalt as well as in Aspen. Okay. So we're working on that modeling right now, but we will not go above that.
Well, no, it's just, to me, it was just a sweet deal to include between the two. I don't use it in Aspen all that much because I'm right in there, but Basalt, we get stuck with, I mean, honestly, there's so many times where either my wife or I are sitting there going, we left our bike at the, all right, I'm going down, the dog loves it because it gets a little walk because we left the bike down there, but it'd be pretty sweet to have this commuter system. And I think it would. The thought of walking all the way to the bus stop, now that there's BRT, because you have to go all the way through, and if we can get if we can get that underpass done, man, it's just like whoop whoop on the bus, sweet, I love it.
Rob.
Okay, 3 easy questions. Is it a nonprofit recycle?
Yes, it is.
And whose responsibility is it to find the partners? Ours or yours? It's yours.
Yep.
So you can't tell us what the annual cost would be yet till you know how many people are buying in.
In terms of the annual, of the 160?
Right.
Exactly. So we would like to come back to you within 2 months to say, here are our partners, and we're looking for partners to be annual contributors as well as capital contributors.
Right.
So that would help. So we'd know kind of what the margin would be in terms of needing to support the system.
And what's the plan for our 17.5?
So that would be for the scoping process over the next couple months, in terms of soliciting, basically hiring a staff member to help make this a reality, in terms of going out and reaching out through the partnerships, all of the meetings, understanding where the stations would go, beginning to scope the material, modifications that would need to be made for Basalt, and writing grants, bringing on donations to be able to reduce the infrastructure or the capital cost on the town of Basalt from a fiduciary standpoint.
Okay, thanks.
You're going to have 3-wheelers for old people?
We're not the first to ask that question. So Denver has a tricycle in their V-cycle fleet. The challenge with it is that they do not on their app have a special notification to show where it is within the system.
Oh, great.
So
that's a little bit of a problem.
You have to put a chip in the old people too.
Can I do that, Rick?
Somebody do it really quickly and they're over 65 and they're probably not
happy with it, Mayor. You know, it's just, I've seen the presentation before, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 46, supporting, moving forward, establishing recycling Basalt.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Please, before the season's over, we're open until November 1st. Anytime you're up in Aspen, please do give us a call and we'll get you out riding a bike so you can try them, get a chance to feel and touch them and check them out and get a little bit of a sense for yourself. We'd love to take you out for a spin.
And Murta,
Thank you.
are you limiting your partnerships to public sector, or are you gonna go after private?
Oh, yeah.
Because if you need some help, I have no shame or pride, I will ask people for money.
Well, that'd be great. I'll be calling you tomorrow.
That'll help you.
Tim Belinsky's sitting right there.
He was in like my peripheral vision when I said that. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you all for your support. Bye-bye.
Good bet.
Wine, cheese, and recycle.
Okay, let's see. Public hearings, first reading.
There you go.
Ordinance 16, an ordinance of the town vacating an alley in Block 7 Alley, Village Town Center.
Hello.
Hello. Did we get this, did we get a map or something?
No.
Oh, it's just up there.
We put it up on the wall and we.
Is it right there?
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
What?
In red?
Yes, James is gonna point to it when he does the presentation.
Well, I can't see that, so it really doesn't matter.
He emailed it to you too.
I didn't.
Anyway, I'll
right.
describe it as part of the.
Yeah, give it to her.
Tim's got it, that's around.
Great, thank you.
So this is a request submitted by Willis Town Center LLC. They're requesting to vacate the alleyway in Block 7 in Willis Town Center. The construction of a mixed-use building is proposed on the site that is to include the 50 units of affordable housing that was required by ordinance number 11 of 2014, which was the ordinance that delayed the requirements for the affordable housing until the hotel was built. So specifically Block 7, as you can see on the map that is going around, and as we have up here, is the block that's across from Block 6, which is the medical building. Here is Block 7, here is the hotel on Block 12. So this is the building that's proposed for the 50 units of affordable housing. The applicant is requesting the alley vacation because they feel that in order to provide that density on the site that they can't provide the alleyway. Staff in evaluating the request agrees with that it would be difficult to accommodate the 50 units with the alleyway. There are some general provisions in the Willits Town Center PUD that talks about having a minimum of 6 alleyways out of the 12 blocks. So they can still achieve that on their blocks as well. So staff has conditions in the draft ordinance that would require that the applicants build the building next on the southern portion of the block so that the affordable housing units wouldn't be overlooking a hole on the same block for a long time. Alternatively, there's conditions in there related to also requiring security on the south portion that would require restoration of the block in a certain timeline if the applicants wanted to build on another block here. So in total, staff would recommend hearing any applicant comments that Tim may have, taking public comments because it is a public hearing, and then letting council discussion. Staff recommends approving the ordinance on first reading and setting the second reading date.
James, just a quick clarification. That L-shaped alley that's there, where is an example of where that exists somewhere else in Willits? Because I can't fathom.
Well, there are 2 alleyways that exist currently in Willits. One is on Block 5.
Which is?
That's the Triangle Park, Triangle Park Lofts. So it's kind of that courtyard area. It was not required to be in an L shape. The Block 6 and the Block 7 were identified for L shape. Block 10 also has an alleyway. It's kind of the courtyard coming from.
So it doesn't have to be an alley
The alleys were allowed not to have to go totally
They
through.
could be halfway through a block. That's the way they're set up.
Maybe it would help if you explain the north half of the block and what's happening in the south half of the block.
Well, the north half of the block is proposed for the mixed-use building that's to contain the 50 units of affordable housing, and it kind of creeps down here on the southern portion. The applicant is also in discussions about the potential for a mixed-use building on the south portion of Block 7, which could include some additional affordable housing units that could be purchased by the school district, could be purchased by the town, or the fire district. So that's in discussion.
So that parcel is actually two buildings?
Yeah, there would be two buildings on the block.
All right.
If I could step in
Yeah.
and
Oh.
further explain?
Yes, do, and then we'll go to public.
Tim Belinsky with the applicant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie. I think that example, and you brought it up, and I saw some looks of where are those alleys, illustrates the point that these alley requirements are in conflict with some of the designs that have been put up out there. But we do our best to integrate it and make it work. The important thing, I think, from our standpoint is that we have buildings that function and that we don't have a building that doesn't load or doesn't have a trash area, those kind of things. And that's provided for in Block 7 schematics that we're working on, both the north and the south buildings butting together and coming together. That provides for a more efficient building and adequate functionality, although you always struggle with trash and loading, that it's never big enough. As it relates to that block, what is underpinning all of it is one large, over 130 parking space, parking garage on the entirety of Block 7. So that again gets to how do you put an alley over a parking garage deck and do that efficiently with loading and fire trucks and everything else. So we're always kind of struggling with this. So it may be that you see more of these over time to come in terms of asking that the alley be waived, after we get, though, to a point of design where it makes sense to ask. So I appreciate staff's assistance in moving this along quickly so that we can continue forward with the designing of this building, which, as James mentioned, is the north side, which is this section above that red mark, is the one we're in permit mode right now on. In fact, awarded the job to Shaw Construction last week. That is a 3-story building, retail, and the 50 apartments that are the affordable housing delivery. We'll probably break ground in the next 3 weeks. And we've had that in permit request mode since end of May in the town building office and planning office. So we're working our way to that, and then the south side of that building, which is just kind of everything else, is where we're designing as efficiently as we can to those who are interested. And it appears we've got 18 affordable housing units that could be on the second and third floor over a section of commercial space that we have a user in mind for. And we need this to happen in order for that to happen. And you'll see more on that in terms of letter of intent commitments, towns 2 units, the school district, teacher housing having as many as 14 units. And it looks like the fire district is also wanting to at least have 2, if not more, that might be available. So there's certainly interest. The timing on that south section of the block would be to culminate and complete approximately the same time that the north side is done. So we're trying to scramble mode right now to get it all rolling and have both north and south side of that block completed at more or less the same time. The conditions of the ordinance do, however, address that if that south side doesn't get vertical, doesn't go above ground, that there's conditions in place that we make sure it doesn't look unsightly for the residents who are in the north building. So that's what we're trying to address here.
Okay. If your applicant information is out here, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing because I don't think there's a lot of public comment, but it is a public hearing. You can open it at 8:33. Is there anybody in the public who has comments or questions regarding this application? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and go to council, or if staff or Tim has anything extra. Okay. Council. Rick.
The
hear a lot lately about firemen and police officers and teachers and essential people to serve the community. And I guess I would ask about what percentage remains available to the general run-of-the-mill working class ski bum, ski instructor, people that are in other service industries, young engineers. We're getting pigeonholed here a little bit, and I don't want to see that go too much further without offering to the community some opportunity, because it seems like it's getting smaller, and I'm all about vacating an alley to create more opportunity, but I think every time we have the conversation, it boils back down to providing this housing for the essential workforce. Will somebody define that for me? Because I think a person that goes out and sells a $740 a day private lesson ticket is just essential to the economy as some others are. And I get it that, ski instructors probably make about half of the teacher makes too. We need to figure some of these other things into the equation. I'd like to maintain, a 50-50 kind of balance here, and I don't want people that have the wherewithal, like a fire district, who often raise money to buy units. It's not a level playing field. So that's just my free market notion.
Care if I respond?
No, not at all.
The 50 units on the north side, Rick, I think will show us an awful lot. It'll be a big apartment building, and we'll have a website to solicit interest and applications coming in.
Is this for sale, the 18, or for rental?
To be sold to fire district, RE1,
Southside.
teacher housing. It'll end up being rented by employees of those three agencies.
And they'll share in the cost of building it.
They'll buy it at a stipulated price. It's already in the PUD control document. So there's really no, round table on pricing. It is what it is. But back to those essential public workers, and which is the highest priority. There are 4 priorities. It's essential public workers that are employed in the town of Basalt. They have first priority, and then we'll see if that fills up or how it fills up. We're going to need 50 occupants in that north building, and that's a lot. So we'll be marketing it and getting the word out, and then it moves to the non-essential Basalt workers. And I can tell you, I've got a lot of interest just from the young employees in Willits to be there so close to their jobs and have a place that is affordable. So I'm excited, but we won't know until it happens.
My crew.
In terms of the splits.
Other? Or motion? A nap, maybe? And make sure you're doing the.
Mayor, I move
Motion, will you
council
entertain a
approve
motion?
Yes.
ordinance
I
numbers.
move approval on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for September 8th of ordinance 16
As revised. As revised?
as revised. Thank you.
Secundo.
Secundo.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks.
We're in flavor.
Appreciate it.
Are we done?
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, no,
Thanks,
we're doing
Tim.
the affordable housing.
Thanks, James.
Mark and Bernie had to leave?
Bernie had to go on vacation or something? and
He
Mark
actually,
had to go to
he
court.
changed his vacation plan so he could come to the first part of his meeting, so.
He called the resolution back on the table. Of course he did.
Of course he did. God. Okay, guys,
Act like he was catching a train.
what about this work session item for council consideration? Somebody? I guess that somebody would be James still?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll be brief here. This is a work session to consider direction on several documents related to the town's community housing, affordable housing program. And the intent with this work session is to do a check-in, just to make sure we're going down the right track before we get into formal adoption and discussions and hearings.
James, I'm having just a little trouble hearing you.
The packet consists of draft housing code amendment sections to Chapter 16, It includes also draft housing guideline amendments, and then it also has a policy document related to town-owned rental units, which was discussed a bit earlier here. So kind of to begin, the draft housing code language is a refinement of the language that the council saw at the May work session, where council discussed reducing the housing mitigation requirements as well as the inclusionary housing requirements. Essentially, the draft language shows a reduction to requiring a 25% of residential project square footage to be category price capped housing. And this is down from 35% in the current housing requirements. And then it also proposes a reduction in the employee mitigation requirements for commercial projects, to reducing it to require 15% of the employees generated to be housed in price capped units. And this is down from 25% in our current requirements. And the reason, as we discussed at the May work session, is really that there's a general thought that the current mitigation requirements are a little bit high for the current financial circumstances, and Eagle County has already significantly dropped theirs, so we're trying to avoid jurisdiction shopping as much as we can also. As far as the draft amendments to the guidelines, we've provided a framework that we worked on with Bach in terms of what should be an affordable housing unit. Mostly their kitchen and bathroom, kind of what should be in there, how much square footage should be in a minimum kitchen size, how many bathrooms should they have per number of bedrooms. So that stuff's in there that Bach came up with. There's also language that reduces the target income requirements for the affordable housing units. Currently, they're set at a maximum of about 150% of AMI. If you remember back to 2009, for those of you that were on the council at that time, we kind of parroted off of Eagle County's, which was identifying 150% of AMI as kind of their target. And so coming out of the recession, we saw that free market prices, which had fallen, were kind of pretty close to the category 3, which is our highest category sales prices. So there's a need to bring those down. The town's housing consultant, EPS, as well as Bach, supported a reduction in kind of those maximum prices, maximum rents, to kind of provide a gap between the free market and the affordable housing prices again, and make them more affordable. So those are included in the guideline amendments. And then kind of finally, the policy document for the administration of town units. We established procedures in there for the town to rent out the units. Basically, the draft provides a first priority for special district employees and town employees, and this would include anybody from the school district, the utility districts like Mid-Valley Metro, Fire District. And so the way we have it set up is that there's a kind of 2-week noticing requirement from the town to those districts to see if anybody is interested from those districts. And then from there, it would go out in the paper to anybody in the employment area that meets the town's housing requirements. So that's kind of the way we set it up. We have minimum lease terms in there of 6 months. And so staff this evening would kind of just like to get council's feedback on, whether council would like us to continue moving forward, or if there's a.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
I mean, I remember that we've been talking about this for a little while, but could you just remind me how and when are the next steps? Because clearly this isn't a public hearing and we're not going to have a lot of discussion about it, but what happens next?
The next step would be if council is pretty comfortable with the direction that we're headed, we would go to the P&Z for a formal public hearing on the code amendments and get the P&Z's feedback and any adjustments that they may have. And then it would come back to the town council probably in a month or two here for first reading
Okay, so we have lots of time to talk about it, because I'm kind of with Rick in that we've been fiddling around buying these houses, but we don't really have any regulations about it. So really, we don't have any level of commitment at this point. We're just saying go forward, keep working, and this is like a pre-development agreement, right?
Somewhat.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I think, if there are big gotchas out there, the staff would like to hear them.
Yeah, Rick?
Actually, hopefully, the action we took earlier will free up some staff time to spend more time on things like this. And then we get back to an ordinary political process, as boring as that might be, to be able to get some resolution on this housing issue. It was identified as a top priority. We need 200 units. It was a big deal. And all of a sudden it went silent again. When I've looked at this over 20 years now, and even longer, because I actually lived in affordable housing in '81, it struck me as ironic that a person from Basalt that went to Basalt High School, left town, went to university and came back, needed to show that they had worked 4 years in the Roaring Fork Valley before they could get a unit. We have, right now, I know 3 young teachers that grew up here and came back to teach in the Basalt school system. They're living with their parents. And they're all young, single girls living with their moms. And that's the wrong answer. So if something, I don't know if it is or not, but it would be if I was a young man trying to pursue it.
Not according to their moms.
We're on a whole different path.
My point is that, if we're gonna do something to attract good.
Just a second.
If we're gonna do something to attract the best teachers to Basalt, then these units should be people that live and work in the Basalt school system, not in Glenwood and drive back and forth. So I would put them in the first tier, and that way we might get the better teachers showing up in Basalt instead of down Valley where it's cheaper to live. And I don't know if that's legal. Tom's raising his hand because it probably isn't.
No, the reason I raised my hand is that I'm working with staff on some revisions to refine the priorities and also provisions to deal with situations where there's multiple people interested in a unit. But what you're talking about is the kind of thing that I think you'll see in the draft.
Great, thanks.
And also, I'm not, I guess when we get a little bit further along, I would like to hear a little bit more about why do we like cut a number in half? What is that based on? It used to be 30%, now it's 15. So just, I don't need to, or want to hear it now, but I just need to know, where did we get this? I mean, it seems to me like we are lagging behind about 5 or 8 years. Like, we didn't go down fast enough when the economy crapped. And now that it's booming again, we're going down. And so I just need to hear a little bit more about WT. Why? Why now? Why so slow? Why so far behind? That's it for me. This is a head nod deal, right?
Well, I'm happy with the direction we're going. I was on council when we did the 35%, and it was for a reason. And I'm worried that when we started this discussion, we were still coming out of that recession, and now we are in this little world of prices are going up pretty quickly. So
until yesterday.
Well, until yesterday, but how temporary that could be, who knows? But the reality for me is that I want to see a system. I would love to figure out a way to work with our other jurisdictions to make sure, because we have an IGA with Eagle, but they just changed theirs. And they changed theirs to much lower than ours. But we actually, at the time, went up to theirs. And now, I want to make more of a effort to make them come up and we can come down. And let's see what that brings us. And I was just wondering quickly, Kathy, you came and you've been sitting through all this. You're on Bach. It's like, yes, but you are on Bach.
Yeah.
And so from the discussions on Bach, James represents that you guys are all in support of this. But what's your priority in this to get it done? How quickly do you want this done?
Well, we've been talking about this for 6 months. So I think that we would like to, we have our one house, our Habitat house. There was the Ronda project, which is stalled, and we have the Willits 50-unit apartment building coming up. but, you know, right now, we have 51 units of affordable housing being built. So we would like to see the recommendations adopted and to bring Eagle County along with that. So that we can actually move forward with funding and going after funding and getting more projects built. And I think part of the reason we decided to lower the requirement was because development had stalled. I think that was, we were responding a little bit to that. So, you know, based on current market considerations, I don't know if we want to revisit that, but I think that we should move forward with the recommendation that James presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that Kathy's been on Box its inception.
Since the 1970s.
Yeah. No, this was a goal of Box when we started it. And it's never been proven that other than in an area like Aston where you have big subsidies that you can put these kinds of restrictions on housing. And I can, you know, from a private sector point of view, this economy is not what everybody thinks it is. And all it's really done is increase the competition, and we're seeing people from outlying areas come into our valley to do work from Rifle, Parachute, Grand Junction. We're seeing a few Denver contractors. So, you know, the recession or this economy isn't necessarily helping locals, but what is happening is there's a real shortage of resources employee-wise. And that's what we got to get beyond, because we can't find qualified people because they have no place to live. So if we are ever going to have a valley economy that's sustainable, we have to have a workforce that lives here. And, you know, we get distracted by the squirrels running by the side of the building, you know, that don't keep us on point here. So I guess we just need to decide if 6 months is the timeline. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with 2 weeks.
And maybe,
I've known this, they've been working on it for 6 months. They want to get it done now. We want to move forward now.
I agree.
Yeah.
So maybe we can speed the rest of this process along a little bit, honestly. And is there anybody who is opposed to staff moving forward as this is presented? Okay, go.
Go forth and conquer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Great. Thanks,
No
guys.
executive session?
Nope.